It's very hard to record like this without feeling like a complete idiot. So there were a few things I wanted to talk about when I made my last video, my last side note video, because that's the thing now. And since reviewing that video, I've come up with a few things that I wanted to talk about. So I think they're all going to have their own separate videos because there's a lot to talk about. But just quickly, it's just going to be a quick one today. The other night I was talking to my husband, and I think it was the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, when I was feeling pretty garbage. Was I feeling garbage yesterday? I can't remember. Yeah. So, intuition and being able to tell if someone is bad or bad for you or just a bad person in general, and the way those people make you feel when you're around them. And maybe it's not something you pick up on right away, maybe it's something that gradually comes to you over time. Maybe it takes you a long time to figure it out. But it called to mind an instance or an occurrence or something that happened to me with a person that I certainly don't particularly like. I don't think I ever really liked them, despite the fact that they certainly went out of their way as a person, and I'm sure in life in general, to try to convince the whole world that they're a very, very good person and very wise, very knowledgeable on all things, so far as to the point where they 100% make up words that weren't actually words to make themselves sound smarter, which I always think is really funny. Anyway, so this person, the backstory is that some friends and I, a couple of my very, very good lifelong friends from the town I used to live in when I was a teenager, Barrel, in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, Australia. It used to be a cool place, sort of, I guess. Now it's something else. So anyway, we were, just me and my two friends were hanging out. I think we just had a coffee or something in the plaza. And this guy just approached us out of nowhere. Like, it was very strange. He kind of looked like a bit of a hippie, a bit of a fairy type person. Like, not fairy as in like a bad thing, but like sort of ethereal looking maybe. Very, very tall, very willowy, all big smiles, big hi, and just like with this whole thing, I'm new to town, and like this had never happened to me before. Like I just had some person approach me and just introduce themselves in such a sort of forward manner. Anyway, they walked up, hi, how you going? I'm new in town, I'm such and such, and I'm looking to make friends. And like, that's literally what he said. And we were all just like, okay. And I guess we thought it was kind of cool because no one had ever done it before, and we were definitely the sort of people who were open to lots of things. And anything weird and strange was very interesting to us. So we were like, yeah, cool. And we actually became friends with this guy. So yeah, I particularly at the beginning was very good friends with him. I thought he was kind of cool, but I wasn't sure, And then anyway, so here we come to the point of the story, the intuition sort of point. I have this thing where my deep instincts and my subconscious will tell me that someone is bad through dreams. And I obviously have a lot of dreams. It's a huge part of my life. But with the dreams, my dream will tell me they're bad by just creating a story around that person, where I'll have terrible feelings, like something will taste bad, smell bad, sound bad. They'll be doing something fucking terrible to me in the dream, in an extreme way, but just to illustrate the point that I shouldn't trust them, I shouldn't like them, and it's very profound, yeah, so anyway, this guy, really said his name, but I won't. So this guy, I don't think I'd even dreamt about him that night, which is weird, but I woke up that morning and I had been using a book to write my dreams down in, because sometimes I do that. I should probably definitely do it more often now, just to write down my dreams, because they're pretty out there. But anyway, I can see a wasp and it's coming in. Don't come in. Okay, so I had this dream book and it was next to my bed, and I'd woken up and I was going to write down my dream. Something in my mind, something in my brain said, write down something about such and such. And it was weird. It was just like, okay, right, but something told me to just write something about him. It doesn't have to be true, just write something in your book. So I did. I wrote a thing, such and such was in my dream last night, and he did this, and honestly I found that a little bit unsettling. I don't feel like he had a right to be there doing this and that, and it was just like, yeah, okay, so I wrote it, whatever. Anyway, I'd woken up, got ready for the day was happening, I think my sister came over or something, maybe had a couple of other friends there, and then he turned up. And, everything was going good until at some point, I guess, like, I hadn't gone in, he must have gone into my room, and he was very invasive. Like, he would turn up at your house and just walk in without knocking, and you just go, oh, hello. Anyway, so he must have gone into my room at some point, definitely went into my room at some point. And anyway, the atmosphere shifted in his attitude suddenly, and I knew something was up, and I just knew that he'd read it. In fact, I'd always fucking known, like, that was why I did it. Something was telling me, just do that and you will find out what he's really like. It's like fucking weird, like, who cares, right? But anyway, it was just really funny and interesting to me. So he had gone into my room and he'd read it, and we were sitting out on this, like, front stairs of the apartment building where we were, sitting out there, and he, like, seriously, he was very over-emotional. I'm not gonna fucking put shit on over-emotional people, but he was, I think he had bipolar, has bipolar, and I think this really affected a lot of his social interactions. I'd seen him actually break down over some, like, what you or I would see as mundane, inane stuff, but then knowing how I break down over mundane, inane stuff is just not something I could ever put shit on. So anyway, he was sitting there and he looked very thoughtful and very troubled. And I was just sitting there, I was just waiting, I waited for it, I didn't prompt him, I didn't ask, but I just sat there and looked at him. And he was like, hey Amber, so I read that book you had beside your bed, and I read what you wrote about me, and honestly I don't really like it. Went into my room and you read my book. Oh, hey kitty. Hey bug. Yeah. How you going? So yeah, that happened. Yeah, so many stories involving this guy where he just pissed me off, and fuck, I always just let it happen without pulling him up. I guess because, like, I've always felt like I don't want to be mean to people, but then by not being mean to people, I'm not drawing a line where they can't be mean to me, like, so just letting it happen. Which, I don't know, I've often wondered if that's an arrogant thing in me, like thinking I can handle it but they can't. Bug, don't do that. Don't do that. Do that. So anyway, he did that. So that was just very interesting. That's an instance of intuition doing something really weird. I've never really talked about it till I told my husband the other day. But it's always something that's popped up in my mind is, yeah, remember when that happened? Because when I first meet people, I try really hard not to judge them. Like, I don't want to. It's not even like I try really hard, I just don't. but I will judge them later, especially when they do something to piss me off. And I won't tell them, I will bitch and whinge about it behind closed doors and get upset and let it eat away at me. And they will probably never know. It's probably something else to work on, is maybe listening a little bit more to gut instincts and what I'm actually effectively telling myself is the truth. I don't think lately I've actually had any dreams about people that are currently in my life. If I have, I can't remember them. So yeah, that was just something that happened. Okay, recording 10 minutes. So dreams is also something else I'd like to talk more about, just because it's a big part of my life. Okay, well, just wanted to talk about that. Don't know if that'd be interesting to anyone. Don't know if anybody else has experienced, well, I'm sure people do experience this. Like, why wouldn't they? One thing I do know is that not everybody dreams as frequently as everybody else, well, as other people. Everybody's got their own volume and frequency of dreams. Some people don't dream at all, which I find amazing. I often think that maybe those people are a lot more happy and content because they're very well rested. One thing I can say is that I can count twice the times when I've just closed my eyes and opened them again suddenly, and it was morning. Actually, well, one of them wasn't one of them. Two of them were, operations. So it was 3 times. Twice, when I had an operation, you obviously just close your eyes and then open them again, and you've been operated on. But then the other time was when I was little, and I must have been so happy. I had gone camping with my parents. Maybe I was like 2 or 3. I don't know if my sister was born. I think she was born then, and she was just a little baby. But I must have been so happy in my life at that stage, because I remember that night I'd been sitting at a campfire with a couple of the other little kids that were there at the camping grounds, and we were just laughing and having the best time ever. And then when I went to bed that night, there was one of those little windows in the side of the tent, and I remember looking up at it, and it was dark. Then I closed my eyes, and it felt like the next instant when I opened them, it was light outside. So I think that was a very easy, I was in a state of just being very peaceful and easy of mind. And that has never happened again. And it never happened before that either. I've always, even since, I don't know when it started. When dreams start to become, just clog up your sleeping life. So yeah, dreams and what they say about us as people and other people as people, to you and maybe to life in general. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly come on here. If whoever, it's funny, because if whoever I was talking about watches this, they will definitely know who I'm talking about, because they're very self-centered, very egotistical, and bitchy. Not that that has anything to do with it, but yeah, just, I know that after that instance, when they read my personal, private diary book, dream book, their attitude towards me changed significantly. And if they don't think that I know that, or knew that, they're fucking having a laugh, mate. I always knew why. So yeah, I always knew why that happened. So if you're out there, and if you're watching this, I know what you were doing. I know why you were doing it. Don't really care, but it's an interesting experience to talk about. So yeah, if anybody else experiences these paranormal psychic, psychological, psychological perceptiveness. I'd love to hear about it. It's a good discussion to have. It's an interesting discussion to have. So if you've watched this, thank you for watching this. If you watch these particular videos, thanks. I really don't expect anyone to ever watch them. So there'll be other things to talk about, and thanks for watching.